one of the first artists that I remember looking, because I always try to find the artist's name, but in cartoons you cannot do that unless you look at the credits, and as a boy you don't look at the credits. Disney films, you can't really know which one guy drew the thing that you liked. But I remember that I used to buy sometimes Math magazine, and I would see Mark Drucker, and and I was blown away by his style talking about caricature. Um I would say that some of the pictures that I saw of Sebastian Kruger got stuck in my mind, and that was like the holy grail of caricature for me. And I think at first I didn't know that was his name, but it was like I recognize this art, and it's the same guy. So for caricature, that would be it. My main influence before. Now, after I came back and started looking at caricature again, I would say maybe uh, Jason Saylor and Paul Moyes and Kurt Jones, and other guys, famous. I would say I'm as influenced by people who are not famous, that in comparison to people who are famous, there are a lot of artists that aren't famous and that are as good as the ones that are. Uh, so I'm very influenced by many. In comic book art, I would say maybe John Buscema, um, also Frank Frazetta. Even if he isn't really just a comic book artist, he was mostly a painter. Uh, that's also something I love: fantasy painting, science fiction painting. Uh, I also was influenced by Jim Lee, and a lot of artists from that era. I would say the best is that you can do something that you like, and if you're a freelance artist, the best thing is that even if you have a deadline, you can choose the time to do. Sometimes not with every project, but you can choose the time to do things. If you're feeling tired, you can rest, even if you know that you have to get up in 1 hour to continue working. It's very tiring too, but then you can say, well, I'm going to take a coffee, I'm going to turn on the TV and see what's on to get my mind off of work, and you can work at home. If you're a freelancer, if you work in an office, I don't know, because I've never, well, actually I was an illustrator, um, at a newspaper, but that was actually pretty good. My teammates were very cool people. I still have contact with them through internet, some of them, and that would be the best part. That you can do you can do stuff and that you like, and sometimes it feels like it's just a hobby and you're not really working. The reality checks in when you know you have a deadline, and you're going to be paid just this or that amount of money. Now the worst thing about being an artist is that actually art is not very renowned in some countries. I'm from Mexico and I live in Mexico, and here, and I know, because people have told me that in many countries they don't pay for art, and in Mexico there's not a culture to pay for art. So I would say it's different in every country. If you're in Mexico, the worst thing about being an artist is that people just don't give a just value for it. They don't really care, and they don't want to pay for it. They rather go and buy a beer than pay for art. because they think art is something that we do very easily and we shouldn't be paid for it. Now, I know they're everywhere. The worst thing about being an artist is when the client doesn't know what he's talking about, and you have to do it anyway. That's not something, and you have to accept it because it's the guy that's gonna pay you. Sometimes you don't have to accept it. That's a choice, but I guess it depends on everyone. If you're 20 years old, you can say, no, I don't want to do it, and goodbye. But if you have a wife and kids, you have to do it. So I would say, for me, it's sometimes having to accept something that I don't like, and I have to do it in a certain way. And the good news is that I don't have to do that very often. I actually end up enjoying what I'm doing, even if I'm being told how to do it. Well, actually, I stopped reading comics for a long time, and I'm meaning maybe 10 years. And recently I got back to reading comics. Uh, and I also like to watch movies. I like to read about religion, many kinds of religions, and I love the positive things about religion a lot. How do I get clients and work? Well, actually, I don't know. I actually don't have many different clients. I'm basically a graphic and web designer most of the time. I have done some commissions for caricatures, not many, not as many as I would like to, but the clients that I have gotten through the internet. I really don't think about the future in that way, because I try to think mostly about the present. But if I had to see myself in 10 years, I would say maybe drawing comics full time, and but maybe doing fantasy artwork, like Frank Fazera and stuff like that. A big part of why I'm into art is because I enjoy the process. So even if it's a very small project, if I enjoy it, that's huge for me. And so I would say no, there's not one single moment that I would say that stands out.